Okay, let's try this again. Double checking audio. Apologize for that. And a couple other technical things going on behind the scenes here. That's okay. Okay, so let's talk through here a couple things we're looking at. First and foremost, severe weather threat. We're still watching that for Tuesday night. Thinking is that it's probably not going to be an outbreak of severe weather. Let's get that out of the way to begin with here. But there could be the potential for damaging winds and tornadoes. And we do anticipate that strong tornadoes are on the table as a possibility for some locations, maybe not directly here in northeast Mississippi, more central Mississippi. And here's our overall risk area that we are looking at related to this. And in comparison to yesterday's risk area, this is yesterday's risk area. This is today's. You'll notice pretty similar. The only real differences of note, a little expansion to the north and east there. So similar thinking largely to what we were talking about yesterday. When we're looking at the tornado risk on this, certainly central Mississippi, more prime. And this comes back to lower level moistures. We've talked about the last few days, the instability, the focus there for lower level moisture. In far northeast Mississippi, which is our primary coverage area here, looks to be more limited and the limiting factor. In saying that, though, as you look at our risk level here, this always comes down to the number of reports, and you'll have the greater number of reports in kind of the orange area. That's not to say you don't have reports outside of that. And so that's where that tornado risk is the greatest, in that black hatched area for strong tornadoes. Now, still the odds are there where we could still have some that do extend farther north and east than that, but mainly going to come along a squall line that moves in the evening time period. And again, this is evening to overnight hours for late Tuesday evening, Tuesday night that we're looking at. Damaging wind potential, you know, same spots there. Tornado potential, wind potential, same spots in both cases. And there is a hail potential to go along with this as well. We talked about this a minute ago, looking at kind of the national map here. The showers we have today associated with this kind of weak little shortwave kind of kicking through the area here that has produced at least some showers that we're showing out there on Doppler radar here. Again, for locations out toward Tala County. Nothing impressive out of this, nothing to really write home about other than say just a little bit of moisture out there associated with this kind of lead wave moving through the area. It's that one back to the west that's the bigger story there that has more of the oomph that's going to bring us to active weather tomorrow. It's still digging southward as it does. It'll have lots of strong winds aloft that'll come over us, and that'll help us to take even more marginal amounts of moisture and produce the potential for damaging winds and tornadoes. So with that in mind there, let's look, kind of walk through a few things. First off, the lower level moisture. We talked about it yesterday. There's just a lot of dry air here. These dew points in the teens, made for an elevated fire danger yesterday, and to a certain extent, obviously, today as well, but not to the same extent to what we had yesterday. That lower level moisture, not impressive today either, but certainly back toward Texas, that's where it's a lot more focused, and that's where the moisture eventually will start shifting more toward our area. One way we look at that is we're now to the point where we can look at the higher resolution projections modeling to give us an idea of what the atmosphere is really capable of in this situation here. And certainly the atmosphere does look to be capable of active weather, severe weather, and tornadoes with this. But it's going to be in a very narrow zone. So this is picking up what we call the HRRR model. And we're looking, this would be tomorrow, early evening. Again, we're going to look at a bunch of different projections here for a moment. But the first thing that's very obvious to me, even on this high resolution projection, and it is on all of them, is a very, very narrow corridor here where we have perhaps just enough moisture and fuel. I do think the timing on this is a bit faster than some of the other projections we've been relying on here. So we'll look at that component as well here in just a moment. But to that order, that very narrow zone here kind of on the front edge where we perhaps have just enough fuel to kind of funnel in that moisture and that instability is one of those signs. And so one of the other ways we'll look at this is looking at a variety of different projections here. I'm going to pull up a site. Pivotal Weather is one that we do use. I think it does a great job of kind of giving us this comparison hour to hour. So this is looking same period. We got a bunch of different projections here to look at. And you'll notice even some of our lower resolution projections, while this one is slower, it's the one we've been looking at the last few days, and its timing is exactly the same as it's had. It has, again, that narrow corridor there. All these do show kind of a narrow corridor, a pinched off area of moisture. This is the one we were looking at just a moment ago there. where we have just enough moisture perhaps to feed in a very narrow area, a few rotating thunderstorms, mainly along a squall line if we were to see it. And again, almost all of our projections have that very narrow corridor. So the first thing that tells me is this is unlikely to be what we call an open warm sector. And I don't think that that was necessarily been on the table the last 2 or 3 days, but that is to say that our opportunity for severe weather and tornadoes is going to be more limited to very near that frontal boundary. And hence the reason when we look at the severe risk area, that's the reason why we don't have a higher risk area to the north and east, is because there's just not as wide a corridor and as many opportunities for storms, both in advance and with the line itself. It's mainly just right with the line. So that is something that, again, the timing on this, you can see we're still refining that, but it does look, I'd say, as early as, in that 5 p.m. time period, especially for the western portion of the area, to as late as after midnight near the Alabama state line. That's really kind of the time frames that we're still looking at there. Okay, so now going back to some of our other projections here, I want to look at this particular one of our higher resolution ones we call the HRRR, and we'll look at its precipitation projection as far as that is concerned. We call simulated reflectivity. And what you'll notice is while it has some stuff in advance there, none of that really lines up well with any of the most unstable air. It's the most unstable air pretty much right at that line. And so one of the things that we look at in this case is what we call this mean layer CAPE. And certainly what that tells me is it is extremely limited up here in the northern part of the state. Most unstable CAPE, which looks at a few other things, does extend farther north, but it's just, I'm not terribly impressed by what I'm seeing on that as well. So we do have some signs pointing in the right direction with this. Other projections do have both of those things a little bit greater in our area still, but at least there are some things that are, again, pointed in the right direction as far as this is concerned. The issue is that the strong winds aloft, and that represents this here, are very strong. Like, this is exactly what we look for a significant chance for severe weather and tornadoes aloft. But forecasting is about ingredients in the right proportions. And we got a lot of shear aloft, a lot of things to make these storms rotate, and a very limited amount of fuel at the surface. That is good because, again, in order to let's talk about brownies. You can have 17, cases of brownie mix and 2 eggs. You're only making so many brownies with those 2 eggs, right? And so we lack on that one end the instability portion of this, and that is a very good sign. So again, going back and looking at one of the things, just kind of when we look at the various projections, one thing that I look for, most meteorologists, I'd say, look for, is we look at the ability for the storms to kick out what we call helicity swaths, and that's basically swaths of rotation. And this particular projection has almost all of those just south of our area. One of the good signs that hopefully strong tornadoes are off of the table for our location. In saying that, let's look. I'm going to change my model here for a moment, and give me a moment to kind of change my window. And we're going to go back over here to the pivotal weather for a second. And I'm going to change my model here to one of the more high resolution projections. And we'll look at some of the composite reflectivity. And you'll notice the timing on this. This is by 6 p.m. This has us a little farther east than some of our other projections have. So a lot of our projections still showing that kind of broken line of storms and severe thunderstorms potentially. Some of them still trying to get storms in advance with a slightly slower line. But I'd say most indications are that we're going to have a line of thunderstorms, strong wind gusts, and perhaps some rotation possible with that. Let's look at the run maximum of what we call that updraft rotation, and I'm going to take this, that's about as far forward as I can go. So unfortunately, most of my models were just now starting to get in there, and some of them do have more of that rotation farther north. Now, I should mention that you see where the positioning is on this here. That is only that far west because the storms on that particular projection, some of these projections don't have them all the way into the area. So a lot of these do still have rotation this far north, but the greatest of the lowest level rotation ends up being a little bit farther south. So there's still areas of concern there that make us think that tornadoes and severe weather are possible still tomorrow. Um, but this is unlikely to be, based on kind of what we're looking at here, unlikely to be a high-end severe weather event, if that makes it, at least in this part of the state. So again, going back to our severe risk area here one more time, just kind of a reminder of what we're thinking. First and foremost, we're looking Tuesday evening. We're looking Tuesday, maybe 4 or 5 o'clock on the earliest end to as late as, say, midnight or so on the later end there. We're working on those projections to kind of narrow down that time frame. But again, that same time frame we've been talking about the last few days. And that time frame does not give a lot of time for moisture to return. And that's the biggest headline that we've really talked about of late, is just it's about how much time do we have for that moisture to return. And our projections here continue to show, thankfully, more difficulty with that. So again, going back to that dew point, actually, there's another thing I could show here. It kind of shows it better. The fiery color here, I think, sort of helps. Let's get this on the latest run. You can see that very narrow wedge of instability. It's just, you go from very little fuel at even noontime on Tuesday to a lot more by, say, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock. That's not a long time frame for that really build in. And so that's one of the things that I think hopefully helps us. So our severe risk area, as you can see here, our tornado risk certainly down south, because there is more time for fuel to get there in that spot. And there should be enough strong winds aloft for tornadoes to be more likely, including stronger tornadoes there. But there is still a tornado threat for us, and we still need to be paying very close attention. And we'll, of course, be able to outline this a lot more as we get closer again into this evening. So with all of that in mind, again, make sure that you know where to go. Make sure, right there, you can stay up to date with us on all of the different places and things that we stream. And of course, tonight as well, we'll have updates. But appreciate all y'all and your support and patience in this, and hopefully we can get through this without things being too terribly bad. I want to thank everyone, by the way, who said the prayers for Mom yesterday. She came home from the hospital yesterday. She seems to be doing better. There's some issues there that are still lingering. Hopefully we can get figured out, but those prayers are appreciated still. I'm very thankful for everyone who was willing to, of course, do that with us. Okay, well, give me a moment. I'll go ahead and pray here just for a second, and then we'll send everybody out. God, thank you so much for allowing me this opportunity to speak with these folks. God, I pray that we that this weather is not too terribly bad, that we can continue to see the dry air dominate, that you protect these people, protect us, and keep us safe, and help us to make smart choices going forward over the next couple of days. And God, just give me the words to lead these people correctly, and all glory and honor and power comes from you. So God, thank you so much for those the insight that you've given me here, but all praise goes to you. God, thank you for healing Mom to this point. God, I pray that the healing process continues. You give the doctor's guidance as necessary to figure out what is next. And just thank you for the incredible support that these people have given me and my family. Pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay, again, updates tonight, and we'll probably do another Facebook Live again tonight as well. But keep it here for the latest. Talk to y'all soon.